The Senate kept the government open, then promptly exited D.C. for a 2-week Easter break. The ethanol industry is still walking on eggshells, waiting to find out what the final adjustments on the GREET model will be. The Midwest saw and is seeing snow and rain. And let's get an update on what's happening in the equipment auctions.
Live from the beginning of the last week of March 2024 via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This morning, we'll catch up with Greg Peterson, Machinery Pete. Then we'll talk policy with Chris Bliley of Growth Energy. Pro Farmer Policy Analyst Jim Wiesemeyer will fill us in with the latest from D.C. Right after the news with Michelle Rook, we'll get a weather update from Brett Waltz of BAM WX. I'm producer Big Apple Joe Stackler, and now the host of AgriTalk,
Wow.
Chip Flory.
All right. Good work, Joe Stackler. Thank you, buddy. Yep, Davis has got the day off. He'll be back with us tomorrow. Michelle Rook is decided to step in. Hey, Michelle, how are you doing?
Hey, good morning. Well, I'm sitting up in the blanket of what we call winter again.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that something? Good grief. We got some heavy snow yesterday, and it really felt like winter had made its, like winter had come back. There's no question about it. But then some rain, and we're heading for mid-50s today. It'll be interesting. We'll get the details from Brett coming up here in just a bit. So,
yeah, no doubt.
Yep, got to do this real quick. Iowa State Cyclone women got beat last night in overtime. It was the last game of the round of 32, and got beaten overtime by Stanford in Stanford. Man, that was tough to take.
The men are still in, and they're still looking good, though.
Yep, that's right. That's right. We'll see what that matchup on Thursday looks like between Iowa State and Illinois. That should be a barn burner, no doubt about it.
It'll be tough. Yeah, you beat my jackrabbits, though. You know that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything about it, but
that's okay.
You know. All right, Michelle, let's get to the news. What do you got?
Yeah, and of course, we're all talking about the weather. A powerful winter storm causing widespread disruptions across the Central Plains and Midwest, prompting winter weather alerts for millions of people. Blizzard warnings in effect from Kansas and Colorado to the Northern Plains. In the Northeast, nearly 160,000 homes and businesses are without power. This will also put some stress on livestock and slow the early start to the planting season in some areas we've been talking about.
Yeah.
The House and Senate are out for their 2-week Easter break. The Senate returns April 8th. The House is in recess until April 9th. Now, before Congress adjourned and following months of negotiations to fund the government, President Joe Biden on Saturday signed a $1.2 trillion spending bill that will provide funding through the rest of the fiscal year, while also increasing defense spending and setting spending guidelines for several government agencies. The Senate approved the package in the early hours of Saturday morning, missing its midnight deadline, but it did avert a partial government shutdown. GOP rebel Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene did make new and some say another expected bid to oust Speaker Mike Johnson, but Greene did not immediately move to force a vote on her resolution, which means it did not trigger action on removing Johnson right away. So stay tuned on that. As for a new farm bill, the House may finally release details of its proposals late April into May, with several creative ideas regarding generating $40 to $50 billion in additional spending beyond the $1.51 trillion 10-year baseline. The key will be whether any of those creative plans will meet with stiff Democratic resistance, which would mean a farm bill stalemate could continue, and the process likely will be kicked into the new Congress in 2025. And that's kind of what you're hearing in Washington, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
2025.
Yeah, exactly. But what are you hearing? Do you feel like there's any momentum here at all? Because GT Thompson is not going to go. He's not going to go down easy on this. He's going to fight to the very end to get a bill done.
Yeah, no doubt. I think what was interesting is there was a lot of people that were speculating that because Debbie Stabenow is going to be retiring, that she was going to try to get a farm bill done on her watch. But more and more, we're hearing that it looks like it's going to kicked into next year.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah. Meanwhile, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley expressed concern about a proposed regulation by EPA regarding vehicle greenhouse gas emissions. The regulation, set to phase in over 5 years, starting with model year 2027, has raised worries about its impact on the national debt, particularly due to electric vehicle tax credits. Farm labor is not just an issue in the U.S., but is also a problem for Mexico now. They're experiencing a diminishing farm worker population, and it's having a negative impact on ag industries. Various factors are contributing to this shortage, including an aging workforce and increased opportunities elsewhere, including seasonal work visas in the U.S. As a result, Mexican farmers are advocating for a guest worker program to address labor shortages. Interesting. And China's major state-owned bank stepped into the market to defend the yuan last Friday after it weakened past the psychologically important 7.2 per dollar level. The banks continued selling dollars for yuan in the offshore markets on Monday to stabilize Chinese currencies. And Japan has also been taking steps to strengthen the yen.
All right.
And that's a look at our news here today on AgriTalk.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michelle. That's Michelle Rook. With Ag Day. So, all right, let's bring in Brett Waltz, BAMWX.com. Good morning, Brett.
Hey, good morning, Chip.
Okay, Michelle gave us a quick summary, but man, it was a rough day yesterday across the U.S., wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just a kind of a crazy day of weather. Blizzard warnings across the central portion of the country. We still have some heavy snow ongoing right now across Minnesota. I think yesterday I saw something I'd never seen before, which was a tornado warning inside the area that had a blizzard warning as well. That was in Kansas yesterday. This storm system will continue to kind of push through today, bringing some strong winds, severe weather down to the south as well. Louisiana, Mississippi, an enhanced risk for severe weather. I think multiple tornadoes possible down there.
Okay. So this is definitely more active than what we saw during the first half of the month. What does it look like into April?
You know, I think we're going to continue with these big swings and some of these ups and downs where it gets cold for a couple of days, it warms back up, it gets cold again. And when you get that kind of back and forth, it tends to be a little bit more active. And so I think out through the first week or two at least of April, the pattern is more active, above normal precipitation probably for a good portion of the middle of the country. And I think we need to keep an eye on severe weather threats as well for parts of the Central Plains down through the Deep South, maybe the Midwest as well. There's a big storm system we're targeting toward the last couple of days of the first week of April.
Okay. So kind of typical spring weather, right?
Yeah, you know, it's nothing crazy, so to speak. In terms of averaging all of it out, you're not terribly above normal temperatures, not terribly below normal. It's just your normal ups and downs for spring. I think maybe we steady things out a little bit the back half of April and maybe some better planting conditions possible for the central U.S.
Well, that was just a sigh of relief that I heard from across the Midwest. when you said that. Yeah. Let's get things back to normal for the second half of April so we can get in the field and get work done. All right, Brett, good stuff, buddy. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Yep, thanks, Chip.
All right, Brett Waltz, BAMWX.com. All right, when we come back, it is time for our weekly update from Greg Peterson, Machinery Pete. We'll find out what's going on in the used equipment market next here on AgriTalk.
Machinery Pete here, folks. This segment of AgriTalk brought to you by our friends at Dakota Ag Innovations, makers of Dakota Shine, the best way I've seen to fix faded paint. Go to dakotashine.com or call 888-996-7801.
Ever since I met you, girl, you've been on my brain.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip Ledger with us on this Monday morning. That means it's time for a conversation with Greg Peterson, Machinery Pete. Hey, Greg, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. How you doing, Chip?
I'm doing all right. Did the bracket survive the weekend?
I picked Tennessee to win, so they're still going, but I'll just say my opponent for them in the proposed final decided to tap out in round one, so I'm sunk.
Oh,
such is life.
Yeah, that does hurt. I've still got both of my teams
Nice.
for the final. Yeah.
Who you got dancing in the finals?
Well, I've got Iowa State in there, of course.
Oh, of
Uh,
course. Yes.
and I don't know what got into me, but it felt like another Duke year to me.
Hmm.
So I've got Iowa
Yeah.
State Duke in the finals.
Well,
Yeah.
the Clones looked pretty good this weekend, so maybe hopefully they
Yeah,
can keep
boy,
it going.
that's gonna be a tough game on Thursday. It'll be tough for both Illinois and for Iowa State.
Yeah, that'll be a battle.
It should be. It should be. If it's not, something has gone wrong.
Well,
And,
the thing I like about Iowa State is when you play defense like they do,
yeah.
then you can have a cold shooting night and be in the
Yep.
game and still win it. But it's fun to watch those fellas play defense. That
Yeah.
coach has got them doing it the right way. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's been fun to watch that all year, and it travels with them. They take it on the road.
Oh, what an
They-
impressive
they really
crowd
do.
they do.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fun.
So-
I was watching what was in Kansas City? Was that the Big 12 tournament?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys turned that into Cyclone colors. That was
That's
impressive.
right. Yep. Hilton South. Hilton South. That's right. Okay, let's get to it. What have you got for the pick of the week?
Well, we've talked a lot last couple of years, Chip, about pre-def four-wheel drive tractors being red
Yep.
hot, and we had another example Thursday down in the southwest corner of Minnesota. Actually, on the topic of March basketball tournaments, this was from Edgerton, Minnesota, which Minnesotans know that when you say Edgerton, you think 1960. Little Edgerton, it was basically our version of Hoosiers. They won the
Yep.
state tournament. But anyway, they had a 2010 Versatile 535 four-wheel drive. This thing only had 387 actual hours on it, so you knew it was going to sell high.
Man.
Came in at 291,000, and that's just a few bucks under the all-time record high price on any Versatile tractor
Wow.
I've ever seen sold at auction. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good one. When you start talking about second highest or of course record highs, you got to feel like this tractor market is still on pretty solid footing.
Yeah, that was pre-def, so it's sort of like we're splitting into a little bit into two markets. The later model
Okay.
stuff across the board sort of is recalibrating. I think we have some other examples from other sales this week, and actually that sale Thursday was provided some insight, and it was by my friends at Deutz Auctions, a great auction company out there around Marshall, Minnesota. But they had a planter on the sale, late model planter, 22 model John Deere 1775 NT, 16 row, 1,500 acres, one owner. That brought $80,500.
Okay.
Now it's 2 years old. The planter prices are recalibrating. They just kind of are. And then they had a round baler on the sale too, a 21 model John Deere 560M, 1,347 bales, one owner. That brought $45K. Which made me think of another round baler we saw the day before that last Wednesday. I thought this was interesting. Came out of North Carolina, Vanceboro, North Carolina, little farm auction. They had a New Holland roll belt 450. Thing was like new. So again, it should bring a premium. But
Yeah.
It brought 41,000, which is the record. That's the highest I've ever seen.
Okay.
Sale was by great auction company we work with down there, Jason Acock Auctioneering, and it actually broke a record Jason set last October. He had one to go for 37.4. So New Holland round balers, of course, very strong in hay equipment. So that was a good sale there.
Okay. All right. You were down. Did you go to that auction down in Palmyra, Missouri?
I did. I had a
Okay.
great time down there last Friday, Palmyra, Missouri. It was an actual in-person dealer auction for
Yeah.
Seidenstrick and Noby Partners, sales by Wheeler Auctions and Real Estate. Man, did they have late model equipment. Wow. It was, and I've always thought, I feel for my auctioneer friends when you have to sell like 26 of something, whether
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
heads or in this case, it was planters. And again, that market's recalibrating a little bit. But just a couple highlights. They had a tractor, a 23 model John Deere 9RX 640. Only had 346 hours on it. I got talking to a young guy. He and his grandpa bought it. 546,000 on that one. The combine had a lot of people talking. A 22 model John Deere X9 1100, 460 SEP hours. That went for 500K. And the planters. Let's get into those. They had a 23 model John Deere DB60, 47 row, 15 inch, 4,500 acres on it. That went for 375. Another 23 model DB60 36 row 20-inch ME5 package went for $365. And then a 22 model John Deere 1775 NT 24 row, just under 5,100 acres. That brought $260. And as we went down the line, again, there was 25, 26 of them. So I think if you would look back in our auction prices to whether it was November, December, or even back into last spring pre-planting season, and look at the prices now, you can see that they're just, because of the supply has gone up on the dealer lot, and of course
there's some adjustments being made.
Corn and beans, what they're doing. So there's some recalibration is kind of my word there.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. Let's keep going here and take us over to Kansas.
Kansas, this one really had people talking last week. I think we talked about it last week, Chip. It was last Tuesday. Purple Wave had an online farm auction for Ingermanson Farms out of Solomon, Kansas. And I posted about this. Man, did it generate a lot of discussion. It was another late model combine, a 22 model John Deere X9 1100. This one only had 107 SEP hours. So we just saw the one on Friday, same deal, 22 model, 460 SEP hours, went for 500. This one on Tuesday had 107 SEP hours and went for 573.1.
Okay.
Which I posted and I said, hey folks, that's the fourth highest auction price I've ever seen on a planter. And it was really interesting. People were like, oh my goodness, that's so cheap. And on the one hand, compared to a retail price, yes. I mean, $850, $900, $950. But from a hard cash standpoint, like write me a check now. I need the money now. Pay me $573. Again, that's what the market is. Now, if that thing would have sold in November and December, we were seeing numbers higher than 573 on a combine like that. So that's that.
Yeah.
And you'd expect it with, corn and beans where they are, and you take out the year-end tax buyers, and that's what it brought on Tuesday in Kansas, 573. So.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go to Durand, Michigan.
Yeah, that was kind of a nice little sale there by XYZ Auction Service last Wednesday. Randy Lukenbill, I hope I pronounced his name right there, had a little farm auction. A couple items I thought were interesting. A tractor, a 13 model Massey, for you Massey fans out there, an 8650, 2,511 hours, brought 82.1. Nice looking rig. And then, Chip, they had this one grabbed my eye. It was an antique Clipper number 27 seed cleaner.
Oh.
And, it's just not something you see every day. And I was curious what it might bring. And looked like it was in good condition. Brought $1,125, which I thought was pretty good. So, that's the fun. You always have to look through every sale bill because you never know what's lurking down at the bottom there. So it was fun.
That's right. There are people that will wait until the end of the auction for those items that are lurking down there at the bottom of the sale bill.
Those lower dollar items, more people are playing on them. So absolutely, they'll wait for those. Absolutely.
Yep. No doubt. Okay, what are you watching this week?
2 sales on Thursday, folks. We talked about this last week, but there's a sale in Kingsley, Iowa for Rob Plendel. Great guy. It's by Paulson Auctions. And Rob's the guy with the 10 John Deere 55 series. I did a preview YouTube video last week. I looked this morning, Chip, before I hopped on the call. The 92 model 4455 two-wheel drive with 2,152 hours, 15-speed power shift is already up to 63K. So 4 days out. And in the preview video, I crawled up in the cab on that thing. And I mean, folks, it is sweet. And Rob's whole line is just amazing. Check out the sale at paulsonauction.com. That's Paulson with S-E-N. Kurt Paulson's a great guy there. And then there's another sale Thursday. I saw, again, back to Southeast Minnesota. I have to apologize. I think this is the one in Edgerton, Minnesota.
Okay.
I got basketball on the mind when we were talking cyclones. But they got a 10 model John Deere 8295R with 108 hours on it. It's by Elber's Auction Service, so that could be a hot one, I think.
Yeah, and no kidding.
Pre-def.
A 2010 model with 108 hours.
Yeah. Get your checkbook out on that one.
That's right. Great update, Greg. Thank you. And we will talk to you again next week. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Sounds good. Go Cyclones.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from Pro Farmer.
Joining us now, Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady. Beach, let's go to the livestock trade first. And the soy complex. We had that cattle on feed report on Friday that showed us the placements above expectations. It was expected to be negative. I think we started under pressure, but the market's coming back.
Yeah, absolutely, Chip. Gap sharply lower and still facing some price pressure in live cattle futures, but boy, they've really come off the lows. They filled the gap from this morning, and so just modest price pressure here at mid-morning. Feeder cattle, they've reversed the sharp losses on the open and are now trading to the upside. So nothing spectacular in terms of price action here at mid-morning, but definitely well off session lows.
You know, when a market refuses to go down on bad news, that's one thing. When it refuses to go down on bad news at the price levels that we're at, I'm not exactly sure what that's telling us, dude.
Well, the placements number was higher than anticipated, so that's the negativity in the report.
Yeah.
But the underlying data is still bullish. Keep that in mind. The numbers are tightening and going to continue to tighten as we move forward.
Gotcha. Okay. Take us over to the grain trade. Little bit of strength in the corn market this morning.
Yeah, just a modest, firmer tone in corn. Really, the story so far this morning has been soybeans and wheat,
Okay.
both of them posting pretty solid gains, double-digit gains in soybeans, and not quite there in the winter wheat markets, but solid round of corrective buying going on. And we're seeing it across all the markets: corn, soybeans, soy meal, oil, and the wheat markets are all higher here at mid-morning.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of outside market influence or no?
Well, crude oil, yeah, trading sharply to the upside, but so is the dollar. So kind of a mixed
Gotcha.
tone from the outside markets.
Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady on Markets Now.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. We've cleared the schedule for you. Give us a call at 855-482-5524 and join the conversation.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Okay, biofuels, ethanol, it's always making headlines. And it's always a factor that we need to pay attention to and what's going on for the long-term direction of the grain markets. And there are some long-term decisions and announcements that the market is waiting for to give us some of that direction. We're going to get the latest on what's going on there from Chris Bliley. He is a Senior VP Regulatory Affairs at Growth Energy. Chris, it's great to talk with you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you, Chip.
Yep. Glad that you are here. Glad you're here. Okay. Tell me about last week. You were working on promoting E15. Now, are you promoting E15 year round or just the emergency waiver for this summer?
I would say a little bit of both,
Okay.
Chip. I mean, most importantly, we saw the EPA come out and finalize rules for 8 states to allow permanent sale, but not starting till 2025. So
Right.
we have, this summer that we need to be able to continue to sell. E15 continues to sell at a discount. We saw savings, on average about 15 cents, but in the Midwest, 40 cents, 48 cents, 33 cents a gallon. And so, the supply conditions are really about the same as last year. We still have, the war in Ukraine. We have what's going on in Gaza. We have, all the shipping issues in the Red Sea, in addition to some refinery outages here in the U.S. So it really only makes sense that EPA, look at conditions yet again for an emergency waiver to allow sale for this summer.
What concerns me about this one, Chris, and you and I may have talked about this once before, but the last time we got the emergency waivers for the Midwest, they basically said, okay, but don't come asking for this again. Are there more headwinds for the waivers for the summer of 24?
Well, I mean, keep in mind, these are always on an emergency basis. So EPA needs to look at the conditions at the time. But again, I think a lot of those same conditions exist. I mean, certainly with what's going on around the world, what's going on with some of the supply issues. It's never a done deal. You're always going to have to prove the case, and people will have to look at the supply conditions at the time. But again, I think with finalizing the rules for not until 2025, the savings we've seen, and again, most importantly, where EPA decides this is on the supply issues.
Yeah. Okay. Where do we stand on year-around availability across the country? Is there momentum there, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a great deal of momentum. Congressional, members on both sides of the Capitol and both sides of the aisle in the Senate and the House have introduced legislation. Have gotten a great deal of support. And again, this would be a permanent nationwide solution. And so we remain hopeful that those discussions continue and we can ultimately get a nationwide solution and be able to sell, this important fuel year round.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, if we could get there, I think, and the thing is, it's not just ethanol supporters that are behind this push. You got consumer groups, you've got retailers, you've got the Petroleum Institute saying, let's just make E15 year-round availability permanent, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, I think that's been the notable change. I mean, retailers have certainly always been strongly supportive. And now you have, some oil groups who are supportive of making year round. So, again, I think we're hopeful. It's as getting things done in Congress is always a challenge.
Yeah.
But again, I think we're going to continue to push forward and make sure that that E15 is available for this summer, and hopefully we can get a more permanent nationwide solution.
Okay. All right. Last week, EPA came out and made their announcement on the tailpipe emissions final rule. It's not, I guess I would say it was not unexpected, but it's not what the ethanol industry wanted. It's basically a mandate to put EVs on the road, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they made some minor changes. It's not quite as stringent as the proposal was, but at the end of the day, their analysis shows a 56% battery electric vehicle penetration. And to us, it's extremely disappointing and really baffling that they're going to ignore biofuels. I mean, because it's a proven solution that can be used in, nearly every car on the road today, particularly as we talk about E15. We can talk about high octane mid-level blends. And frankly, EPA just ignored, the number of biofuel and ag groups that talked about the benefits of higher bioethanol blends. And, to us, again, that's very troubling. It seems, very short-sighted to rely on one sole technology, essentially. And so, we're going to continue to look at these and continue to push our case because we know the emissions reductions, because ultimately this rule is about emissions reductions, both greenhouse gases and criteria pollutants. And, higher bioethanol blends have a proven track record and can be used in existing infrastructure today. And so that's why we're, extremely disappointed and really baffled that EPA wouldn't consider biofuels whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if we can clear that pathway for ethanol to jet, corn-based ethanol to jet fuel, sustainable aviation fuel, we don't want to ignore the vehicle market by any stretch, but it opens up so many more opportunities on the demand side if we can get that done. But we're waiting for this final adjustment to the GREET model on assessing total emissions from corn-based ethanol. It was supposed to be out by March 1. It's still not released. What do we know today about that announcement, Chris?
Yeah, no, great question, Chip. I mean, I think I think that's exactly right. There is certainly a great deal of promise in a potential sustainable aviation fuel market, but you have to get the policies right in order to make, help make sustainable aviation fuel and ethanol to jet competitive going forward. And so everyone expected this to be done by March 1st, but I would say the work continues amongst the agencies. Department of Energy, USDA, EPA, the FAA, and really Department of Treasury, and on the updated GREET model. And so, in particular, they're looking at ways that agriculture can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We know that, your audience certainly knows that, but it's getting people comfortable here in DC about how that's done, how it's measured. And so, we're really pushing forward. You saw a letter from a number of, biofuel groups and ag groups. But it's going to be really important that the details are done right and make sure that really they're capturing all the greenhouse gas reductions, both at the biofuel plants as well as on the farm.
Okay. What do the tea leaves tell you, Chris? How is this going to lead? Because the reason I'm asking this is they had such a wonderful opportunity to make the announcement by March 1. Could have done it at Commodity Classic, would have been a party. And instead they put it off, saying that it's such an important decision, we got to get it right. Is it because there's so many agencies involved in this that is putting it off?
Well, I think there are a number of things. I think you're right. I mean, I think, hopefully, will they get this done correctly and get all the details correct? And so really give a chance to see the reductions you can get from, biofuels into sustainable aviation fuel, as well as, start to assign some value for greenhouse gas reductions on the farm. And so this can really be quantified. And so I know folks are asking a lot of questions. I think we've answered those questions and really, connected the dots for a number of different agencies. But hopefully we can do this sooner than later. I know, certainly Secretary Vilsack and others in the administration are pushing to get this done quickly because they know we've been waiting. I think they wanted to get it out on March 1st as well, but had a little bit more work to do. So I think we remain pretty hopeful.
Okay. Boy, if this puts up a roadblock, it won't be the final word on this, Chris, will it? I mean, if the final adjustments on GREET somehow create an additional headwind for ethanol to jet, that's going to just be start the battle over this, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be, very, very disappointing.
Yes.
And ultimately, the administration has put out some very ambitious goals, and they're going to need a great deal of volume to come online very quickly. And
Right.
so really it's important that they get the policy right. Otherwise, those volumes are going to fall well short.
Right. Okay. All right. Hey, Chris, thank you for hopping on here this morning. We really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, great talking to you, Chip, as always.
You bet. Good to talk with you. Chris Bliley, Senior VP Regulatory Affairs at Growth Energy. We've got some breaking news coming your way from Jim Wiesemeyer at Pro Farmer next.
In the morning, you're coffeeed up and you're thinking. In the afternoon, you've calmed down, but you're still thinking. We're here all day. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad you're with us. Pro Farmer Policy Analyst Jim Wiesemeyer joins me right now. How you doing, Jim?
Pretty good, Chip, although I'm tired. I watched that Houston Texas A&M game last night that went into overtime.
Well, I watched the Iowa State-Stanford women's game that went into overtime. So that would have been 1 o'clock your time, pal.
Yeah, well, I know what you mean.
Didn't turn out for me.
Yeah.
No,
that's a shame.
Yeah, what a great year for those for that team though. That was a lot of fun. Okay, I said at the end of the last segment that you've got some breaking news for us. Let's get to what you know.
Well, I've got word that sometime this afternoon, it looks around 2 p.m. Eastern time, USDA is going to issue a release about that unidentified dairy cattle disease that's been hitting several dairy farms in Texas. Now, we don't know what disease it is. I've heard different speculation, Chip, and it's just that. It could be what's a bacteria called MH. Another source told me it could be a variant of HPAI. Let's just do the bottom line. We should get information about it today. As far as market impact, it depends on the number of farms involved and whether or not it's spread. I heard there's a couple of Midwest farms involved as well, but so right now it's pretty isolated, Chip.
Okay. Yeah, you can get a really good summary of what it is that we know at agweb.com. Tyne Morgan Tyne was the author on that report, and it's flu-like. It's hurting production. But the problem is, like you said, Jim, to this point, nobody's been able to figure out exactly what it is.
No, but you had Texas Animal Health Commission, USDA veterinarians, and field practitioners met to review those cases, Chip, of this bacteria, let's call it, on the 14th of the month, and so that's why I think we're going to get information this afternoon.
Okay. All right. Well, we will definitely be watching for that. Senate passed the appropriations bill and then took off for a couple of weeks.
In the wee hours of the morning, Saturday, and then, of course, the president signed it as soon as he could. They're going to take off for 2 weeks. $1.2 trillion bill. And in the House, more Democrats voted for it, Chip, than Republicans. And that's caused a lot of ill will. You've got intra-party fights amongst the Republicans again in the House.
Yeah, and it happened as we were on the air on Friday.
Yes.
That Marjorie Taylor Greene made a motion to recall the speakership for Mike Johnson. Nothing else has happened on that, has it?
No, she just put it as a warning signal, pink slip, etc. I think if Speaker Johnson from Louisiana, once they come back, were to offer an aid bill for Ukraine and Israel, all hell will break out, literally, in the House, unless it's attached to significant changes under the border control, Chip.
Yeah, to me, it looks like the priority is clearly defined. Deal with the border before you do anything more on Ukraine or Israel, or he's we may be looking for a new speaker.
Yeah, but then who would it be? And then that would just, again, as I say in my speeches, the Republicans, it's not like herding cats, it's herding feral cats. It's just, as you go into elections, they're just continuing to show they can't govern. They absolutely need Democrats, but to me, that's coalition government. I don't see any ill will of that at all.
Yeah, I don't recall the name, but there's another Republican congressman that is resigning, whatever. And is the GOP majority in the House down to one vote?
It will be in a few weeks. It will be in a few weeks, and then it can come back to 3 later on. But, Chip, that's assuming there's no a major surprise. Say, what if somebody, for whatever reason, on a Republican side, something happens to one of them? You could present a case where the Democrats could take control.
Yeah.
And I would tell you, if that were to happen, they would form a budget reconciliation because the Senate's controlled by the Democrats, and you could have a lot more spending, and they could have carte blanche what they want. Now that's speculation at this time, but that just shows you how on razor's edge the control of the House is, Chip.
This is unbelievable. it's got to be high anxiety for the GOP in D.C.
Well, especially a number of these House Republicans who are retiring, they could have waited, but they didn't. So I don't.
They're making a statement by leaving when they're leaving.
They are absolutely. So that's just throwing them under the bus, in my judgment. But it shows the frustration in this town.
Well, but there's ways to make a statement without creating even more frustration, and this certainly to me feels like there is more frustration.
There is.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick on the appropriations bills, how many earmarks?
Ooh, there's a lot. There's well over 1,000, Chip. There's a lot, but you had to have that in order to get the votes. But there's some dicey ones in there.
You know, and I've made the statement many times. I'm for earmarks if they are vetted and go through the earmark process.
Yeah.
But there's no way that you can have a 1,000-page bill with thousands of earmarks that have all gone through the proper process to get them on there. I mean, they just loaded this thing up again, dude.
Congress. Emphasize first three letters.
Jim, you're the best. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you, man.
Sure.
Okay. All right, Jim Wiesemeyer, pro farmer policy analyst, bringing some much-needed perspective to what's going on in D.C. Thank you for listening this morning. You got to come back this afternoon. Phil Conrad, Traders LLC, right here on AgriTalk.